Hi, I'm Steve. Welcome to my shop. This video I'm going to cover how I built this modified Fritz and Franz jig that I used to cut the three-way cross-lap joints in the hexagonal table build. This jig was built specifically for a sliding table saw. However, you could build a similar jig for use in a miter slot in a regular table saw. I opted for this jig after multiple attempts to achieve accurate results by hand cutting the three-way cross laps. It's achievable. I was able to achieve nice tight joints that look good. However, I could not, for whatever reason, I was not able to achieve 60-degree angles between every leg. I was always off just a little bit. And when you're off a little bit at the very center of the table, it extends to a lot of bit out the outside perimeter of the table where the legs are. So that's why I opted for the jig, and I achieved incredible results with this, and I expect anybody else could too. So I hope you enjoy this video, and thank you for watching. I'm using a router with a track to mill the groove in the bottom of the plywood for the runner that goes in the T-slot of the sliding table. I'm having to make two passes. My slot is 20 millimeters wide at the minimum, and the bit size I'm using is 3/4 of an inch or 19 millimeters. So the micro adjust, I'm able to achieve a good fit. It's important with the runner that it fit snugly in your miter slot or T-slot with minimal side-to-side play. Here I'm checking the fit of the runner, and it's a nice fit. And here I'm using a height gauge to make sure that my runner does not go below the T, because I'm going to need to clamp this thing in position to hold it on the table. If it went too far, I'd never get a solid clamp. Here I'm temporarily putting the runner in the piece of plywood. That's a cut off or an offcut from a different project that I wasn't going to use for anything else. And I'm just putting it in the slot, and I'm going to trim both sides to be flush with the blade. And because that runner is loose, although it really didn't fall out, I am clamping the plywood in position on the table so it doesn't move around on me. And this is cutting the other opposite side of the slider. I had originally intended on this jig being able to be flipped around. As it turned out, it was really more efficient to not do that, just use one side all the time. So sometimes plans change as you actually go implement them. And after making the edge cuts on the long slide, I'm just cutting the ends square, just to make sure that it is correct. Because when I milled the slot, I wasn't sure whether it was actually square or not. So now I'm just squaring the piece. And here I'm cutting the 30-degree miter. The offcut will be one of the clamping pieces, and the middle section will be the part with the stops. Now, somewhere around here I heard an odd sound. I didn't know what it was, but here in a minute you're going to see exactly what it was. It just didn't feel right. It was pushing through. It wasn't, the scoring blade was not cutting. So I pulled it back out. I turned the scoring unit off and restarted it, and it did not really help anything. And then I figured out that the scoring belt, it disintegrated. So I had to order a new one. 2 days later, I'm up and running again. I guess it really wasn't required, but for a jig. But yeah, I just like nice, crisp edges. So here I'm cutting the other 30-degree angle. And I've trimmed the runners to size, and I'm just gluing them in the slots on the bottom of the jig. I like to use very shallow grooves to glue the runners in, just because it keeps everything straight, and I don't have to worry about a slight bow in the material causing excessive resistance in the slot. And I'll just clamp them in place for a while, and then when the glue squeezes out, I've got this, I think that's a bench crafted glue scraper, and I'm just scraping off any excess. Here I'm taking a piece of Baltic birch ply that I've counterbored and using a 1/4 carriage bolt to drive through, and that's what I'm going to use to clamp the center section of the jig down to the sliding table. Here I'm milling grooves at the shaper with an adjustable groover. That is to accept the T-track for the stop blocks. And now I'm just installing the T-tracks. These were some original T-tracks that I had purchased from my original Fritz and Franz jig. I had ordered some extras. And here I'm attaching some 3M stick-it paper to the edge. It just helps prevent the wood from slipping and provides a more positive clamping surface. This is the same stuff that I used on the original Fritz and Franz jig. And I'm just screwing some handles on. And here I'm learning that aluminum is a very good heat conductor. I've cut some stop blocks for use with the T-track, and I'm just cleaning up the edges. The stop blocks I just cut with a jigsaw with a bimetal blade. I'm just attaching some ultra high molecular weight polyethylene tape to the bottom of the stop block, and that's just to help it slide easier on the in the T-track. And then I'm cutting the hole where the tape covered the bolt hole. This I originally had used had just made one stop, but I figured out it was better to use two stops, so I went ahead and made another one.